Welcome to tonight's LX Views. We'll be exploring entrances into Charlotte from the southwest. We're starting in the part of town where the light rail has recently been installed. It's called, there's a sign that says West End now. I don't know if that's the historic name for it or if that's a new name. This is a nice descent on a bicycle. I like the bike lane here. Or not bike lane, but sidewalk. Feel pretty protected from the traffic, which can move fast. There's a freeway entrance right here, as you see. And as with all of the freeways, it almost feels rural with the trees and the grove of trees there. But then it's quickly urban again, with public art and large murals depicting leadership in the neighborhood historically and in residents as well as sort of an interesting scene. I don't know what that's trying to depict, but it's good to see art that might not necessarily have a message. And more art just reflecting the city. And then again, back in the interstate, rural countryside. We then cross over a creek. This is Irwin Creek. So this is, I'm assuming based off of where all the mines were, this creek is where you could probably come in there and pan for gold at one point in the last 10 generations or so, but those days are past, I'm assuming. I wouldn't go in there to pan for gold anyway. Unless someone actually found gold, in which case I would absolutely go into the creek to pan for gold with the kids. Not sure we'd find anything, but it could be fun. So we're coming up through that gateway village that we talked about in the previous video. This was built in the 90s. You can see, I think in the 90s, maybe the early 2000s. The art definitely looks very of that time period, which is fun. It's playful. And then here we are climbing that hill. I'm probably breathing pretty heavy at this point. It's a big hill to climb. And I did it already twice that day, I believe. But here we are climbing the hill past the Gateway Village. This is an interesting development. There is a college, there's some office. I'm not sure if there's any residential. I think it's a university now. And then this light rail streetcar. When I first moved here, it was just a bus, but they had put a body on it, so it looked like an old-timey streetcar. Anyway, on the right is a church. It's a voting place as well. I voted in the 2016 election there. I think a lot of the folks that are in the west side of Uptown vote there. And here we are. We're coming up to the delimiter for this video, the Norfolk Southern tracks. So here again will be where that gateway station is supposed to go in at some point or another. And then there's just a big open field and a great view of the Uptown skyline on a really pretty autumn afternoon, or morning actually it was when I took this. So the towers are pretty gleaming. I think what's interesting about this street is starting on the other side of 77, doing that little descent down from where that West End sign was fun. And then seeing the church. I have to imagine that church sort of as reflective of a community that was optimistically started. Maybe it existed later. Here's the exit off of the interstate. That's what a lot of folks see. And now we're approaching from West 4th Street. So this one's fun because some of the housing stock's actually been preserved. And you'll see as we go underneath it. So there's the street that goes from South End called Summit Ave, and that's where all the mining activity was. And I think the highway took a lot of the right-of-way for it, but it was somewhere over here. That's Fraser Park. There's some workout equipment I use over there. Time to time there's a soccer field, playground equipment. It's a nice resource. I think it was added when they put in the interstate. I don't know for sure what the history of it was. Again, now we cross the creek, the natural boundary. So this is, and now we're starting to see houses, right? This is like the first time, it might be the only time in West End that we'll see houses. And I think it's interesting on the left, where we see sort of kind of modest looking bungalow styles houses. And as they get closer to the street, you can see that it was probably very serene, right? You're near the creek, near the edge of town at one point. And then all of a sudden an interstate gets put through, and it's the same story of everywhere, really. It brought immense convenience and a lot of value, but some of the history got lost along the way. And who really knows what was on that left where that big building is now, right? If there were houses or parking lots or industrial. One of the things we'll see as we go through this part of town was there were a lot of like factories, foundries, like just light and heavy industry. So they may have been condemned. They may have reached the end of their useful life, been condemned, and what was left behind was parking lots, and that's what they did with this village here, which they've done a pretty decent job with. I would like to see on that parking garage on the left where they have all of that lattice work. It'd be cool if they built like a living wall. I think they could do that on the cheap. That would be just like a nice way to bring down temperatures in the summertime, and also I don't know, I feel like I saw a sign once that said just looking at nature and foliage reduces blood pressure or something. So I don't know, maybe they get Medicaid to pay for it. Anyway, this is cool. That parking lot that we're coming up on is pretty interesting because it has some remnant whatever the word for remnant flora. I didn't really stop to inspect it all that much. Maybe one of my bike rides I will try to get a feel for what it was. That's one of the things I've noticed as I've sort of been doing this urban exploration. Oh, before we get to that, on the left, you'll see the bus station. That's the bus station. It's pretty close to Uptown. It's if you're from the Northeast, you know, buses get used, and bus stations are a little more, I don't know. They're bigger. That's, I guess, the upshot of it. All right, now we're entering from what's called the Wesley Heights Greenway. So this is fun. This is a greenway that they put in. It's next to some old railroad tracks. I think there were trolley tracks. So from what I understand, around the turn of the 19th century, the 20th century, the turn of the 1900s, there was this real estate development called Lakewood or something like that, which was out, I don't know, maybe 10K from the urban core of Charlotte at the time. And it might have even been like an amusement park. And those tracks went there. And then, you know, the highways got built, and in the middle of the century, everything got condemned. All the railroad stuff, streetcar stuff got condemned. And the neighborhood's kind of slumbered for a little bit, but there's been some revival. There's like an old mill that got rebuilt. Anyway, here we are. We're in a big parking lot, and this is like where the tailgating happens for the Carolina Panthers, and you can kind of see on the right like some low-lying industrial buildings. There's a ramp. We'll see when we do the Moorhead approach. It's almost like an earthworks, and underneath it there's this tunnel. I'm wondering if it's a mine entrance that survived all these years. I don't know, but yeah, we're just riding adjacent to those tracks out to Lakewood that there's a greenway on now, and it's really fun. It's a nice ride. I ride it from time to time. I run it a lot. I used to run it a lot more back when I used to run more, but Yeah, on that right, you can see kind of like an assembly type style building, like mid-century, 1940s, 1930s style assembly style building. And then obviously there's the football stadium. And I think and then on the immediate right, you'll see like almost like a steel mill looking building. Not like casting steel, but working steel. I don't know what the distinction is between like actually melting down ingots of iron ore and hammering it into shapes is, but I think that's what was done in that other building. But you can get the character here, right? It's industrial, it's post-industrial, and I don't know when the stadium got built. I think it was in the late 1980s or the early 1990s. The city just approved a big bond to renovate it. I think it was hundreds of millions of dollars. They did it closed doors. That was the scandal around it. I don't know. But yeah, so we're going underneath the train tracks now. So we're back in that classic Uptown. Cool thing about the stadium is where I got my COVID vaccine. The stadium is where I did my early voting. It is a cool resource. I would say this with the town and the investment that the city, sound, whatever you want to call it, is making in it. I'd like to see it open more than on the weekends. I'd like to see it open for more than I'd like to see it open and more inclusive, right? If everyone's paying for it, it is a good resource. They do a decent job with, as I was just telling anecdotally, with some of the stuff they do in there, and hopefully that continues and is even expanded. And maybe they need to add some outbuildings or think more creatively about festivals. I don't really know, but I think that would help everyone feel a little more comfortable with the big investment the public is making in this, I think, technically private property. But it does showcase the city. So yeah, it's a brilliant view so this is the old Third Ward. I don't really have much to say about it. On the left, you see that brutal building. A lot of this we'll just get into in later videos, so I don't want to give away too much. But you can see there's the holiday tree. And then across the street is some disturbed land. We'll get to it, I think, later in this video, if not in the next one. But what I think is cool about that is even in the 21st century, that's where mining actively happened, and the ground's super disturbed, so hopefully we get to that. So now we're going down West Moorhead Street, heading west. This is the east entrance, easternmost heading west. I think I messed up the title cards on here, but so this bridge here that we're looking at was the whole inspiration for this whole series. I was just looking at it one day and I thought to myself, that thing is incomprehensibly large. I mean, it's incomprehensibly large. All those columns, all that steel, the abutments, it's so high off the ground. The camera doesn't do scale to it. It's as big as the tree though, or it's up, it's got to be 10 yards, 10 meters, whatever. And on the right-hand side is the stadium. I wish I had a mining map. I really do. Because this is where it happened. All over here is what I've been told, or what I've read. So it's rumor and speculation that I'm spreading there. Don't take that for gospel. But now we're coming underneath the railroad tracks. A little less grand in their scale. And yeah, this is Moorhead Street. So some of my other videos, I've gone down East Moorhead, given some interesting, I'm hoping, commentary there. This is West Moorhead Street. It feels pretty industrial. On the left, we'll ride through it. That's the old foundry. And then on the right, you can see some low-set, like industrial park style buildings, and something that looks like an old assembly factory to me as well. So the way that I structured this is I didn't do every approach that ended up feeding onto this road and then feeding onto the greenway. I just did it once. So this is, we'll do the approach to the greenway later, but that's an intersection to it. All right, now we're going down West Summit. So this is the connection to South End. we are going over the Norfolk Southern tracks. So this time we cross the tracks at grade. I think it's the first time we've done that in this video. Those are pretty major tracks. And then I'm just kind of looking back and forth here. On the left, on the right is the land for the old foundry, and then on the left it's just some manufacturing building, distribution. Who knows? There's an interstate exit right over to the left. We're turning right, but so it had good access. And then here, this is historic Charlotte, and this is what the place looked like 80 years ago, 100 years ago. Just sheds, warehouses. That looks like a pretty substantial, in the background, a pretty substantial works of some sort. And we're going down underneath the interstate. In this case, it's the Spur Road 277. I think this was built even before the interstate. I don't really know the details of it. And then we're back in that large campus for the old Charlotte Foundry. And the funny thing, it's relocating to Stanley County. And it was operational even a couple years ago. And every once in a while, especially in the winter mornings, there would be this like acrid stench in the air. And once the pipe foundry stopped its business, it stopped. I stopped smelling it. So I never knew whether it was the railroad or the Charlotte Foundry, but I still don't know for sure. Anyway, what they're doing now is it's called Bloom Studios. So it's cool. We saw some art there, which was fun. And this, though, we're going to see on the left, there's a sign. It's part of that public art program. It says, "I want to make art that sings to me." La 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 la. And then there's some more, but then we come out to the intersection with Moorhead and look at that view of factories and brick buildings. It's pretty. Probably looks great at sunset. And we're going along Moorhead Street to that intersection where we would go on Moorhead Street. All right, so now we're going east on Moorhead Street from the west. And we can see these low-set attached buildings here. It's almost like a little square. But then there's the interstate, and it just interrupts it. Who knows what was there before, if it was even really all that impressive. That's the thing. There's not a whole lot of history to mourn, from what I understand. A lot of it was just like either open space or manufacturing buildings that weren't built to last. Anyway, so we come under the interstate and yada yada yada. It looks rural, right? I'm saying that again. We're about to cross over the creek. We probably already crossed over it. We haven't seen it yet. And then this is an interesting question, though. Where is it? Because it's back there. We didn't see it. That's interesting. Anyway, on the right, this is kind of a cool building. The portico is interesting, anyway. On the left, we'll come up. We'll see. It's just cool Art Deco. Little flagpoles at the top feels very WPA to me. Then on the right, you look at that campus, the old. I think they're calling it the Iron District at this point. It's gonna be a cool development whenever it gets done. And then we climb up this ramp here. Underneath this ramp is that tunnel I was telling you about. And then I stopped to see the cosmos, smell the cosmos. So it was cool. They had this like big immersive experience. They had this giant Earth. It was part of like the Charlotte Arts thing that they did in September or October. And inside one of the buildings, they had a big version of the Earth. And everything was all dark. And you could go lay on the ground and look up at the Earth. It was super fun. We took the kids. They enjoyed it. We had a lot of fun. I think we ended up having some nachos or something. It was a cool place to hang out. The air conditioning was strong, and it forced us to be creative, which I enjoyed much. And here we are. So this is all of the other Moorhead Street and the Summit Street. They all fed to here. Now we're actually going down. I forget the name of this street. And it's going to feed onto the Greenway. And then that's it in terms of approaches from what I consider to be the west side, and then we'll start approaching from the south. But I mean, you can feel how industrial it is. I guess all of Third Ward used to be like that. The buildings got condemned and cleared, but the stuff that was outside of some imaginary line survived. And to this day, it's kind of been repurposed. I think it's like offices and like tech startup-y type stuff. Some of it's restaurant space, bar space. I don't know if there's any coffee shops. Mint Street. So the Mint is actually, so when they struck gold in Charlotte, there was a private family that was actually striking the gold into coins that were being used in circulation. This place was in the turn of the 19th century, in the early 1800s. This place was the wilderness. I mean, it was miserable in the Wild West. There was no money. Everything was bartered. So it was an amazing mitzvah for them to be able to get gold, find gold underneath. And yeah, they found gold. I think the Bechtlers was a family that struck them into coins, and they petitioned the government, the U.S. government, and they got the right for the first public mint in the South. And it was in Charlotte. It was on this street. That's how it got its name, Mint Street. It's a little bit further up the road on trade. We'll get into it when we do the Uptown video. But what I think is interesting here is on the right, you see that disturbed land that's been cleared, and I'm assuming they're building a tower or something now. But what I just found so striking about it was that even today in the 21st century in Charlotte, there is on the corner of where they were digging for gold, just dirt all over the place, and the plants that are growing there in that disturbed environment are likely the same plants that were growing there when that environment was disturbed for an entirely different reason 2 centuries ago. And here we are in an old parking lot. I love these old parking lots. So this is clearly, to me, just like it was a house that was condemned. They cleared the house out and they sold it for parking. And there's an old fence that we're going to drive by and you'll see it. And I just think it's so cool. It's an old picket fence, I think. And then the foliage, the flora, I have to imagine was just old backyard plants as well. But this that fence is falling down. Yeah, you'll see it. There it is. Perfect. And then we go over the interstate, and I mean, this to me, it screams air rights project, right? With all the development that's happening in South End, and I think it's already been explored. I don't know if the city has the appetite to potentially shut down some of the lanes going into town, even though there's an approach from the north, less than a mile away. If somebody came and opened up their pocketbook, their wallet wide enough, I'm sure the city would listen, the state would listen. But it would be great too, to just have a contiguous South End and Uptown. But and I think the ability. So the last air rights that got done in Charlotte, it was like a bad. The city is suing the contractor. We'll just leave it at that. Then we see the ACC headquarters. That's the Atlantic Coast Conference. It's a collegiate conference. Good athletics, good academics too. I'd be thrilled if one of my kids got into the ACC schools in college. Thrilled. And that's it. Hope you enjoyed the evening. Check you later.